Join me for a Springbar factory tour where you will see all the details of how these tents are made right here in the USA. In fact, this tent right behind me is the Springbar Skyliner, and that's the tent they were making the day we did the tour. This is Springbar's newest top-of-the-line flagship tent. It's hot tent, wood stove ready, and man, I love it. And I think you're gonna love seeing how it's made. Enjoy the tour. So here we're right by the shipping dock where everything, all the raw materials first show up. So what do we got here? We got poles, we got canvas. Where does this come from and what happens to it?
You know, obviously with a canvas tent, a big part of it is the canvas, and so all of our cotton, the raw cotton comes from overseas, but then it gets processed in Georgia in the southeast. It goes to our partners who do our finishing and dyeing there. So they do all of our colors there. They apply the sun forger treatment for water repellency, and they do an inspection step there. And then once that's finished, the cotton gets packed up and comes to us where we can start cutting it and turning it into a tent.
Yeah.
And then almost every part of a Springbar tent, we do source as much of those components domestically as we can. So all the poles are made here in Salt Lake City by a local machine shop. If we're not making them here ourselves, stake loops, window screen, really just trying to source as much of it here as possible.
So here we are in the cutting room. This is where the canvas comes in big rolls and goes out and cut pieces ready to sew together. That's the gist of it, but what else? How does it happen in here?
Yeah, this is kind of a really old way of pattern cutting, and really the same way it's been done since the 1960s. So our Viso, our cutter, he'll do a big layup on the table depending on what tent he's cutting or what parts he needs, and so he'll lay up 30 or 40 different layers of canvas on this table using the spreader machine, and as the material's coming off the spreader machine, he's looking at all of that material through a light, looking for any defects that might be in the cotton, anything that's in the weave that might affect the performance, and cutting that out as he's doing the layup. And then once he gets a layup done on the table, he'll put the patterns on here, draw all the patterns by hand, and then cut all the parts on this table with a big manual knife basically. And then once the parts are cut, he'll fold them up and stack them kind of like you can see down at the end of the table, put together a whole batch of tents for the sewers, and then they're ready to go up into the sew room.
Is what we're looking at there, are those the same piece for multiple different tents, or are those already kind of organized in kits for like here's one tent? How does it go from here to the sewers?
Yeah,
how do you bundle that up?
So those
what
are
do you got going on here?
Kind of all organized into kits, but depending on the tent model, he'll put together, we typically are building in runs anywhere from 12 tents to 24 tents or sometimes more. So there might be, a stack of, depending on the run, here's 24 window facings stacked up, and here's 24 logos to go with it, and here's 24 end pieces. And then all of that will get bundled up together for them to go up to the sew room, so they have everything that they need to make those 24 tents or 12 tents or whatever we're doing that day. So, but yeah, it's a lot of work.
What happens over here? Is this just for sorting?
No, this is where we cut the floors. We basically made a kind of a custom cutting machine like that, almost like a big paper towel dispenser where we can just pull that material out on this giant table. It's kind of marked for all the different floor sizes and different tents, and then we just zip it off, and that's gives us a big piece of floor material that goes into the tent. Like we've been making like that 10 by 10 footprint tent for decades, or a 10 by 14 footprint, and so a lot of the reason why we do things the way we do is just years and years of kind of testing and field use and tinkering, and a lot of those relationships with kind of our vendors and the raw material sourcing, they go way back too.
What's in those bins?
Yeah, so that's where the cut parts, he'll put like a whole batch of tents into one of those bins.
Well, now we know how it's all cut and prepped. Let's go see how it's all sewn together and how we start seeing a tent come together.
You bet. So we can probably go up here and kind of just walk through. You know, a couple years ago we implemented kind of a lean manufacturing process for how we put a tent together, but basically the parts, cut parts from the room will come up here to the head of the room, and then a tent starts getting made here at the top of the table, depending on the model. Right now we're making Skyliners, which is a little different process. But every one of the machines is set up to do a different process on the tent. So usually we start up at the top of the table with like the double needle machines doing doors, windows, assemblies like that, and then it'll move down where they're putting door and window panels, end panels together, all the way down to we've got these big, call them open arm machines, where the big panels all come together that are these big machines hanging off the table. And then all the way to the very end, the last step, the floor goes into the tent, and then it's ready for stake loops and inspection, basically.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the skilled workers you have here. I imagine, do they usually come to you already trained? Do you train people on site? Is it a little bit of a mix of both? I mean, how does that work? How do people learn what you do?
You know what, it is a mix of both, and we feel just super lucky all the time to have the amazing tent makers that we do, but we have folks who have been here doing this for 20 or 30 years, who are super skilled. We have folks who started who'd never used a sewing machine before, who've become some of our very best tent makers. And we have folks who come to us who have a lot of sewing experience and pick it up super quick. And so kind of all of the above. Yeah.
And you mentioned a couple different types of sewing machines, if I understood right? So there's some from the more fine work and some detailed work, and some for the bigger.
And not to get too much into the weeds, but there is just a lot of detail. So I mean, there's 3 or 4 different types of machines that we're using to do the processes. There's 3 different types of thread in every Springbar tent in different parts. There's 100% cotton thread. There's cotton poly threads, depending on the different parts. So some machines are set up with different threads. So it's a process.
Right on.
That's how we make a logo. So all of our bags and tents, do that all by hand.
And then that just gets sewn right onto the tent, then like that. Is that it?
Yeah, so that's the logo on the tent. So these are all bags and stuff for packing. So they'll, after they're stenciled like that, we'll serge them, and then that's ready to go onto the tent in the process. So Mike right here is putting a floor in a tent, and so this is kind of the last big sewing step, and this is a signature Springbar thing that we're the only ones who do. So you can see this rope he's got back here, and that's going, he's almost finished with that one. And that rope gets sewn into the perimeter of the entire tent.
And I'll say honestly, I think that's, like, compared to all these different tents I've tried, it's a relatively simple design, but it's brilliant. Yep. It pulls those side walls out, so water sheds away from the tent. It's just really sturdy, makes those stake loops really easy. So the rope gets sewed in first, but then the stake loops happen after then.
That's right, yeah. So, and he's still, after this pass, he'll still need to go around the entire perimeter one more time to lock the rope into the bottom perimeter. So he has the top one done right there, and then he'll go through the entire floor again to pull the rope into the bottom. And so, yeah, it's kind of surprised that nobody else has copied that. I think it's probably just because it's a...
Is it more labor intensive?
It's not an easy way to do this, Comes off the table into a bin, they'll bring it over here in a bin, and they'll put, all the stake loops in. And so he's doing that second pass right now that sucks that rope down into the bottom. And then that machine sets the loop right over that, right over the rope in the hem of the tent. And that just makes it makes the stake loops basically indestructible. You just can't pull them out, you know, and so, and really that's what makes, you know, the Springbar tent, you know, kind of a legend in really heavy weather and in bad wind. Is it really depends on how well the tent is staked down and how strong those attachment points to the ground are really what make that work the way it does. So that's a big difference.
So once the stake loops are on, it comes here for final inspection.
Every single tent that we do in the shop here gets put up on the deck. These guys call it the iceberg.
The iceberg?
You know, time on the berg. Every tent gets raised up, and then they do a really thorough inspection on every single tent, making sure it has the right number of zippers, the right number of rings, everything that it should have, because there's a lot of details in every single one.
So it must just be a checklist they cruise down, right? And
there's a big checklist, but then there's a big step, and you know, they're looking at all of the canvas again, because sometimes, you know, maybe some oil or grease from the sewing machine got on a part or something, and so they're looking for that. They're also looking at all of the seams, making sure that everything is pulled in and looks good through the entire thing. And then once they're done with the inspection, you know, if everything looks good, they sign the label of who inspected it.
yeah, that's awesome.
Who sewed it.
Little personal touch there.
Yep, and then we kind of know that one's been looked at, and then it's ready to get packed up. So then they'll lower the tent down, they'll roll it, pack it with you know, the stakes and the owner's manual and the gear loft and everything else that comes with the tent, and then it's ready to go out.
So obviously you're not doing the full pole assembly over here too. This is, you got a device set up to just do
we just use an
tent
overhead
inspection.
hoist, and it just lifts it up so that doesn't look like a tent would look like, you know, if it was under tension and set up, but it picks them up enough that they can get in there
And the pole
look at
inspections must be, that's a separate process. I'm sure your suppliers do their own and you do yours before it all gets back.
And then we check every pole set, and then gets boxed back there, and then they go together and go out. This is our repair room.
Oh, nice.
So these are all tents that are in for some kind of a repair.
Yeah.
So, and we just have one dedicated repair sewer. She's been doing it for over 10 years, so she kind of knows all the ins and outs of how you fix a Springbar tent. But
the new and the old models and little changes along the way.
Yeah, you know, and that's one of the fun things is we'll see old tents come in that we didn't even know existed, or they made, or different fabrics or different colors, or so it's fun to see old tents come in. Like, I don't know how old this one on the table is right now, but it's got like, I mean, this tent's probably, I mean, that tent's probably 40 or 50 years old. It still has,
oh yeah, like those
still
zippers.
has, you know, like the metal zippers. It's got like some blue synthetic panels in it. It's got, I'm not even exactly sure what model that is. But that's really cool, and just kind of goes to show you that, you know, we keep them going.
And you do offer a lifetime guarantee on your tents, right?
Yeah, so, you know, we call it a satisfaction guarantee. I mean, if there's something that fails that's a warranty issue that shouldn't fail because we did something wrong, you know, we take care of that, you know, at no cost, you know, no questions asked. But as far as a repair from wear or tear, because sometimes the zipper does wear out, or sometimes your dog runs through the screen window, or you get in some really crazy weather and something goes sideways, or these things happen. You know, we have the repair program, and, you know, really reasonably priced depending on what the repair is and how much time it's going to take, and we can fix it. So, but a lot of times the repairs are really pretty simple, or a patch, or if it comes to just replacing a pole, that's really simple. We just stock all those parts here, and we can send you the part that you need to do it. So when you decide you want to get a Springbar tent and you pull the trigger on it, it comes up in our system, and Alan here gets your tent put together and gets the labels on, and we get it on a truck, and it gets right out to you. So
it's not just US-based customers, right? Some of these tents will go to overseas.
That's a cool thing about, you know, the Springbar tent is it's kind of, we've got fans all over the world, and people found them and love them for camping, you know, not just here in the West or in the US, but kind of all over the world. And so it's fun to see where they go and see the pictures, you know, come up online. And
Besides the US, what are some of your biggest customer bases?
yeah, we've got awesome Springbar fans in Japan and in Korea and in Thailand. Those are probably some of the biggest ones.
All right, so here we are. What do you call this, where we're at here, and what do you do?
Oh, the pole shed? I don't know. So, but this is where we'll have, you know, poles come in. You know, some of our poles are made by another machine shop here in town, and so they'll come in on a pallet, and we keep them all organized here. And then some of the poles we're making in this shop, and then, you know, Skylar, he'll put together a pole set, you know, based on what we're building, you know, from that stock of parts. So like this is, what are these, Skylar? These are these Vagabonds. These are Vagabond pole sets. So he'll put together a whole set, because, you know, everyone gets 2 upright poles, a ridge pole, 4 tension rods, put together a whole pole set. And then, so that's a batch of, I think that's a batch of 12. And so then he can get them packed up, and that's ready to go with any Vagabond.
Nice.
You know, whatever color it is. So.
Yeah. Are all your poles pretty much like galvanized steel? Are they? Do you use aluminum? Is it a mix?
Yeah. So all of the USA made tents, it's an aluminum pole set.
Oh, nice.
Which is definitely more expensive, but really nice, because one, it's a little bit lighter,
Sure.
and it just doesn't, you know, rust or corrode. It's out in the elements, and so it's an aluminum pole set, but it does have kind of key steel reinforcements. So some of those aluminum pieces have a smaller diameter, you know, steel tube inside of it.
Gotcha.
That reinforces sections of the pole set.
Yep.
And then, you know, the tension rods that make the whole Springbar tent work, you know, those are kind of a specially tempered spring steel. And again, a lot of those are just kind of details and that have been figured out over a lot of years of what really makes these things work out there. So.
Yeah, what people like to have. Well, this is awesome. Thanks again for doing this space. I love seeing how stuff is made.
It's a work in progress. So
it always is.
It's a bit of a labor of love.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just really believe that you know, the more people who you know, see how we do it and you can kind of bring them into that, you know, experience.
I think it's awesome.
I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I feel like people want to support that kind of a thing and want to buy products like that.
Absolutely right.
And so that's why we appreciate, you know, you guys coming down or people just helping, you know, share that story. And
And by the way, I should say, because this is not a sponsored video, there's no money changing hands here. Now, Springbar's been awesome, and they've hooked us up with some gear to review here and there. But even the links below, we're going to link to their site. That's not an affiliate link. So we're just doing this. I think it's a cool company. They're doing some cool stuff, and I think it deserves to be noticed. So any final thoughts? Any closing thoughts on what you guys have done here, or where you see yourselves going?
Man, I don't know. We're just here doing it the same way we have been, you know, and I think that's you know, just another big difference. If you're interested in, you know, a Springbar tent or want to know anything about it, and you call us on the phone, we're going to answer the phone and we're going to talk to you. You send us an email, and just trying to take really good care of you know, anybody who's willing to take the time or make an investment in a Springbar tent. We really make it a point to, you know, do the kind of highest level of service we can to take care of folks, and I really think that's what's, you know, kept Springbar going for the past, you know, 60 years, and so that's what we're going to keep doing, is doing it the right way and doing the best we can to take care of folks and treat them right. So
well, thanks again. It was awesome to
you
be able to come and tour your factory and see what happens behind the scenes. I hope you enjoyed the tour. I know I sure did. If you like seeing how the Springbar Skyliner was made, I think you'll also like my full review of the Springbar Skyliner tent that you can watch in this video. Thanks for joining, and as always, get outside, go camping.